Hey, hey, hey. Time for an out-of-this-world story from rSpace. Infidelity is an ugly beast, but what's even uglier is the arrogance that comes with thinking there won't be consequences. Today on rSpace, karma doesn't always wait for a slow burn. Wife's affair partner thought he could taunt me, so I sent every screenshot to his wife's lawyer. They tell you to expect a lot out of marriage, but you can't expect everything. You can put in your best to get through the rough patches, and everything can still crash over something completely ridiculous, like your wife deciding your work hours were a good excuse to have an affair. I won't say Melissa, 28 female, and I, 30 male, always had a fairy tale marriage. We didn't. We got married young. We hadn't fully figured out our lives yet. We rushed into things a bit and weren't fully financially prepared for life together. I wasn't earning much above minimum wage, and she didn't have a job at all. It's hard to keep the romance alive when you had to scrounge up pennies just to make sure you didn't go hungry that night. But over the years, things got better for us. I got promoted and job hopped a few times until I was earning a more livable wage. She started working too. We didn't have to do advanced calculus to figure out how to stretch a box of mac and cheese over a week anymore. With the primary cause of strife in our relationship gone, it should have been smooth sailing, right? Well, somehow, it only made things worse. The problem started when I landed a lead role. There was a significant pay increase, but a lot of additional responsibility as well. I didn't mind. It was everything I'd been working for all these years: financial responsibility and career growth. It was worth the lack of free time. Melissa, on the other hand, did not agree with me even a little. At first, she was excited about it. We talked about what we could do with the extra income. We could start saving for a house. We even discussed the possibility of trying for a child somewhere down the line. We were both extremely optimistic. But then the late nights started, the early mornings, the missed date nights because there was an urgent deadline approaching. Suddenly, Melissa wasn't so understanding anymore. She complained endlessly about how much I had to work. She wasn't used to me being away this much, but I thought she would get used to it with time. I assumed we would settle into a new rhythm and make it work. That was a bit too hopeful of me. In my defense, I really did try to make it up to her. I arranged weekly date nights and planned weekends away, surprising her with little gifts, and made sure to be fully present for her whenever I was home. But no matter what I did, it wasn't enough for her. When I was out late for work, she'd send me passive-aggressive texts asking where I was or saying she hoped I was having fun. When I just got home, she'd complain when I took a half an hour to rest and unwind. When I finally came out to spend some time with her, she'd nag me for being exhausted and say there was no point having extra income if we couldn't spend any time together. I tried to explain to her that I wasn't enjoying this, but it was a sacrifice for the sake of our future. I pointed out that I was trying to make up for it by making the most of what little time we had together, but that was hard when she spent most of that time in a sour mood. That didn't do much good. Melissa refused to see things from my perspective. She said I was choosing work over her. She believed my efforts weren't genuine. They were a sign of guilt. That annoyed me because so what if I was doing it because I felt a little bit guilty? That didn't make the effort less real. I was still trying to make the best of a challenging situation while doing what was best for our family's financial future. I didn't stop making an effort, but I could feel my heart wasn't fully in it anymore. What was the point of going the extra mile for her if she just wrote it off as me compensating for abandoning her? It didn't help that she wasn't making any effort on her end. All she did was complain that I was spending more time at work. We had our first real fight about it during a Netflix and chill session. Well, it was more of a Netflix session because we started arguing before we could get to the chill. We were cuddling on the couch, watching a movie together, when she said, "I wish we could spend more time together." I sighed, trying to keep my frustration in check, and pointed out that we were spending time together at that moment. She rolled her eyes and said that my mind was still at work. That pissed me off because that wasn't true. I'd left work on time and hadn't checked my phone for work messages all night. I was having a nice time up until that comment. It felt like she was actively making up reasons to vilify me. This time, I let my frustration through. I complained that nothing I did was enough for her. She pushed away from me and asked if I was blaming her. I told her that I wasn't, but my attempts to keep the peace failed. We broke into a full-blown argument that ended with her slamming the bedroom door behind her. That night, I sat on the couch, wondering where things had gone wrong. She got in my head and had me wondering for a moment whether this was truly my fault. Was I destroying our relationship by taking on a few extra hours to secure a successful future for us? Looking back, of course not. I was bending over backward to balance my work and our home life. I should have asked why she was so dismissive of my efforts. Because the truth was, Melissa wasn't just upset about me working late, she was acting out because she'd already checked out of the relationship. Things only got worse from there. There were more fights and she started getting distant. Suddenly, it was like she didn't care about the relationship at all. Somehow she was putting in even less effort than before. The truth came out one day when I was home earlier than expected. I told her I was going to stay late, but I headed home early to surprise her. She wasn't home when I got back. I ended up waiting 3 hours for her to get back. She was all dressed up when she finally walked in, looking way too put together for a random night out. I didn't say anything at first. I just watched her walk in and observed her reaction when she saw me sitting on the couch, waiting. Her eyes widened, and she stopped mid-step. She was clearly shocked, but she did a good job hiding it. "You're home early," she said, trying to sound casual. I told her about my plan to surprise her. She came over to kiss me on the cheek, but it felt forced. There was no tenderness or passion in it. I asked where she'd been. She said she was out with friends. I found that hard to believe. She hadn't told me about any plans to meet with friends, and what she was wearing didn't seem like a girls' night type of outfit. It was too sexy, too revealing. I told her to tell me the truth. She scoffed and insisted that she was. I explained that she never mentioned going out that night and that she never dressed that way to meet her friends. I pointed out that her leaving and coming home before I was supposed to be back made it seem like she was sneaking out to be somewhere she shouldn't be. That was when she flipped everything on me. She said that the only reason she had to go out to entertain herself was because I was never around. But I wasn't going to let her make me feel guilty this time. I never forced her to stay home. She had always been free to go out whenever she wanted. I just wanted to know where location, for safety's sake. Today, and probably other days too, she'd snuck out without letting me know where she went. She got quiet at that. I felt like I was backing her into a corner, so I didn't let up. I asked her if her friends would be able to tell me where she'd been if I asked. She flared up, asking me what I was accusing her of, but I didn't let her deflect. I shouted her to shut up and repeated my question. I almost never raised my voice at her, and I was surprised at how loud I was. I think it shocked her more than I expected because she started crying and apologizing. "It was just one time. It was tonight." She kept repeating those words through sobs, and I felt my blood run cold. I asked her what was just one time. She sank onto the couch and curled up before confessing that she'd been with another guy. I asked her how long it had been going on. She stopped sobbing long enough to tell me that it was just a few weeks. I told her not to lie to me, but she didn't say anything. I was tired of playing nice with her. I stomped over to where she was, and she shrunk away like I was going to hit her. Instead, I grabbed her bag and pulled out her phone. She started to protest, but I just swiped through her phone. I had asked her what his name was 3 times before she told me it was Chris. I went through her messages, and there he was. Big surprise, she had lied to me. They'd been talking for months and sleeping together for at least half of that time. They flirted, reminisced on their sexual encounters, and even made fun of me. Somehow the last bit was the worst part. I threw her phone onto the coffee table and told her I was heading out to stay with a friend and that we'd discuss what we were doing in the morning. She couldn't meet my eyes, but she felt she had to defend herself. She said I was the one that drove her to this. I'd neglected her, and Chris had helped her feel less lonely. I was too exhausted to feel angry. I knew she'd try to blame me, just like she did with everything else. I didn't argue with her. I just went upstairs to pack my stuff and left. Neither of us said a word as I walked out. I stayed with my best friend, Mike, trying to process everything. I didn't sleep, just sat there scrolling through the screenshots of their images. I'd sent them to myself while I was going through her phone, in case I needed proof. I spent the next morning trying to plan my next steps. My first instinct had been to salvage our marriage, but I realized there was no saving it when she blamed me for her affair. Melissa called me multiple times, but I ignored her. Instead, I sat with Mike and told him everything. He was furious and wanted to go over to our apartment to curse her out himself and even suggested we pay Chris a visit, but I told him it wasn't worth it. He agreed that my marriage needed to end, and he's had my back through the whole process. I'm not sure I could have gotten through this without his help. He was the one that suggested I share my story online just to help me process the crap swirling around in my head. It's helped a bit. Maybe I'll post some updates as things unfold. Honestly, the best thing you did was leave. Let Chris deal with her constant need for validation now. I'd give it a few months before he realizes she's just as exhausting as she made you out to be. Update. I know I promised multiple updates, but things happened rather quickly. At least it seemed that to me. So here's one big update on everything that unfolded after my marriage collapsed. I reached out to a divorce lawyer the day after I moved in with Mike. I wanted to make sure I had all my bases covered before I made any moves. My lawyer advised me to start gathering as much evidence as possible, not just of the affair, but of any assets, shared accounts, and anything else that could be disputed during the divorce. Melissa kept calling me, and I only picked up once to let her know that I was going through with the filing for the divorce. As soon as she heard that, she went into blame mode. According to her, I drove her into cheating, and now I was throwing away our relationship without trying to fix it. I told her that I'd put in enough effort trying to fix our relationship while we were still together. She'd repaid my efforts by ignoring me and sleeping with another guy. She accused me of being cold and unforgiving. To her credit, she didn't cry this time. I guess she was done pretending she felt guilty. I told her that there was nothing to work through. Our marriage had been over for a long time before I caught her. She was the one who had ended it, and I was just making it official. I hung up after that and didn't pick up the phone when she called again. She didn't text me, so I was surprised when I got a strange message that definitely wasn't from her. "Damn, man, didn't think you'd find out like that." I didn't know who it came from at first, but I had a sick feeling. I asked if it was Chris, and he confirmed it with a smug smiling emoji. While I grappled with what to say, or whether to even say anything, he kept sending more messages. "Sucks, but at least you know now. Don't take it too hard. She told me you were basically roommates at that point. Don't worry, I'll take good care of her." I couldn't even figure out what his goal was here. It felt like he was trying to taunt me, but what was the point? I considered blocking him, but he sent the messages that changed everything. "Look, Melissa told me you've moved on from her. I know you'll use the screenshots, but you don't have to drag my identity into this. My wife doesn't know about any of this, and I'm really hoping we can keep it that way." I stared at my phone for a minute in complete disbelief. I couldn't figure out what Melissa saw in this guy. He was clearly an idiot if he thought I would do him any favors, and he was definitely stupid if he didn't realize he'd just given me more ammunition. The guy that ruined my life was married, and he texted me directly with a confession. We hadn't bothered confirming his identity in court because my wife hadn't denied the infidelity, and honestly, Chris was unimportant in the proceedings. But apparently, he'd been so anxious about being exposed that he'd tried to appeal to me directly. I couldn't refuse the gift that had just been handed to me. I had the chance to get back at him and Melissa, and I could save some poor woman who was being lied to just like I had been. I had Chris's phone number, his name, and the fact that he knew my wife. It wasn't hard to find his social media, especially since the idiot had his photo as his profile picture when he texted me. Once I found him, finding his wife was trivial. I sent her a link to a folder that had everything, the screenshots that I'd taken from my wife's phone, as well as the screenshots of my conversation with Chris. I titled the email, "For Your Lawyer." She sent me a confused email asking what was going on. I told her everything from the beginning. She asked me for proof, and I told her that the screenshots were all authentic. The only real proof she could get would be to confront her husband. I wasn't surprised that she didn't contact me after that. I was some strange guy who had dropped in and delivered life-changing information. It was understandable that she didn't want anything to do with me, but I knew the job had been done when Chris sent me a very angry message. It was full of him cursing me out and threatening me. I wasn't worried about him. I mostly just found it funny. I didn't bother giving him a reply, apart from the same smiling emoji he'd sent me. Melissa was livid too. She called me, screaming into her phone about how childish I was. She said it was between me and her, and that I didn't need to ruin Chris's marriage. He was a sweet guy who didn't deserve it. I told her to cut the BS. He was a moron who ruined my life and panicked when he realized there could be consequences. I was glad he was suffering, and I only felt bad for his wife. Melissa told me that his wife was filing for divorce, and he was desperate to stop her. He even blocked her. For some reason, that seemed to upset her most, which put a big smile on my face. I was glad to know I wasn't the only one suffering here anymore. Melissa and Chris had both thought they could get away with disrespecting me and blaming me. Now they were paying for the price. I blocked Melissa after that. We had no reason to communicate anymore. I only saw her in court, and even then, I didn't speak to her directly. We had our lawyers handle that. The divorce was as bitter as they usually go, but the proof of infidelity shifted things in my favor. The screenshots were the star of the show. When it was finalized, Melissa got nearly nothing. She's struggling to make ends meet without a work-obsessed husband to care and provide for her. Tough luck. I never heard from Chris's wife again. She probably hates me, but I don't mind. Just like me, she'll come to accept that it's better to be single than to be trapped in a relationship with someone who takes you for granted. It's hard, but she'll heal, hopefully, and she'll find happiness again. I'm still working on that part myself. Meanwhile, I've moved on. To be honest, I'm still moving on. It's a long process, but without her nagging and guilt-tripping, I've been able to focus on myself and on my career. I no longer feel like I'm walking on eggshells, and I realize what weight she had been on my shoulders before. I'm making real progress with myself, and my prospects have never looked better. Chris's wife deserved the truth, and now she has the chance to escape just like you did. And Melissa? She can enjoy the single life she fought so hard for, without the financial stability she took for granted. And yeah, moving on is a process, but it's better to be where you are now than where you were. What do you think? And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you next time.